Australia is the driest inhabited continent in the world. Yet there is still enough water to sustain life. Rivers deliver much of this water, and one river supports more people than any other. The mighty Murray River. Together with the Darling River, the Murray River makes up Australia's longest river system and the 5th longest waterway in the world. It snakes its way through 3 Australian states: New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. The word river comes from a Latin term meaning a divider, and the long stretch of the River Murray divides New South Wales and Victoria. The River Murray begins life as a gurgling mountain stream, carrying rain, melted ice and snow from high in the snowy mountains. These mountains spread across Victoria and New South Wales and include Australia's highest mountain, Mount Kosciuszko. As the Murray flows west, it grows. The river gathers water that drains from a huge area called a basin. Like a giant bowl, the basin collects rain above ground and water stored underground in layers of sponge-like rocks called aquifers. Most of this water runs into hundreds of smaller rivers called tributaries, which lead to the Murray. The Murray Basin is so big, it covers an area about the size of Victoria. Much of the river's middle section flows through flat lowlands known as the Riverine Plains. This part of the Murray Basin is rich farming country. In summer, the river is so low, irrigation is used to keep the crops alive. But in winter, heavy rains can cause the river to rise so much that it floods. The floodplains are also home to Australia's largest stand of red gum trees. They're in the Barmah and Milawa forests, which straddle the border between New South Wales and Victoria. Red gums rely on the river's occasional flooding for survival. The river's westward journey changes abruptly near the South Australian town of Morgan. Here, it turns sharply south. The Murray finally enters the sea near the coastal town of Goolwa in South Australia. Countless people, plants and animals rely on water from the Murray to stay alive. But this river hasn't always been the great water source it is today. The southern part of Australia was once attached to Antarctica. About 45 million years ago, Australia began to tear away from Antarctica and drift north. The split, beginning in the west and gradually extending to the east, stretched Australia like a piece of plasticine. Some stretched parts of Australia, including the part that now makes up the Murray Basin, sunk a bit lower than the rest of the land. Every so often, sea levels would rise, sending seawater up into this swampy lowland. As it flowed in, it dumped layers of sand and limestone. When sea levels dropped, the retreating seawater ran out along cracks in the layers of sand and limestone. Fresh water flowing down from surrounding ranges carved channels along some of these cracks. When sea levels rose again, seawater also flowed along these channels. This erosion by sea and freshwater continued for millions of years, gradually sculpting the river and tributaries we see today. Aborigines were the first people to live beside and use the River Murray. Their Dreamtime stories give different reasons for how the river formed. One Aboriginal legend tells of a Dreamtime hero called Nurrunderi, who was fishing from his bark canoe. He spied a giant Murray codfish called Pondy swimming in a creek and tried to spear it. But Pondy fled, widening the creek with great sweeps of its tail until it became the River Murray we know today. The arrival of European settlers had a dramatic effect on the Murray. Last century and early this century, they opened up farmland. Towns began to develop along the river. These isolated communities relied on the Murray as a major highway. Paddle steamers towed barges upstream. They'd go back down the river carrying wool, grain and other produce. Today, the paddle steamers just carry tourists. The river is no longer important as a transport route, but it's vital as a source of water. The number of people who depend on River Murray water has increased dramatically. So dramatically that with the help of modern technology, the river has been changed to ensure a constant supply. Left in its natural state, the river would flood in winter and shrink to almost a trickle in summer. To stop this happening, a series of weirs and locks have been built along the Murray. By closing these off, we ensure a year-round water supply. The Snowy Mountains hydroelectric scheme has also changed the River Murray. The scheme converts the energy of water pouring off the Snowy Mountains into electricity. But it also diverts this water so that instead of flowing east and out to sea, it flows west along the Murray where it's needed most. More water means more people can live and work in the basin. But the changes we've made to the Murray have had some serious side effects. Most of the mallee scrub that once covered the river's basin has been cleared to make way for crops. The deep roots of mallee trees are adapted to take in salty groundwater. When the trees are cut down, the salty groundwater is not being used and starts to rise. The crops need clean water to survive. Instead, their roots take up this salty groundwater, which eventually kills the plant. What's left are dead salt plains on which nothing will grow. And all too often, this salt makes its way into the River Murray. Knowing that what happens upriver affects the water quality downriver, state governments have united to fight the problem. Bores have been sunk into the salty groundwater, enabling it to be pumped to land far away from the river. In other places, huge woodlots have been planted. These take in the sewage which we once piped straight into the river. But salt and sewage aren't the only ingredients spoiling River Murray water. This is blue-green algae. Usually it's safe, but when it grows this much, it poisons the water. Again, human interference is behind the algal blooms that make Murray water unusable. Fertilisers used on crops, for example, often wash into the river, feeding the algae lurking beneath the surface. In December 1991, an algal bloom spread so much that a state of emergency was declared. It lasted for 22 days, during which time water had to be carted into many of the communities that depend on the river for survival. This sort of disaster warns us that the river is sick and needs better care. By heeding these warnings, we can preserve not only the magnificent Murray, but the lives and lifestyles it supports.
For a custom copy of this program, contact ABC Commercial on 1300 650 587 or visit abc.net.au/program sales.